Christian parenting.
Our daughter had a daughter. 3 months ago, we met our first grandchild. Join us as we share about this life-changing day.
Hi, my name is Ray Reno. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Reno, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Hi, Rob Reno here with Visionary Family Ministries, here with my bride of 28 years, Amy.
Hey, great to be with you.
Well, we've just experienced a life-changing event in our family.
Yep.
Our daughter had a daughter.
Yep.
Lissy and her husband, Bond, were married last September. And on June 14th, 12:30 a.m., Amy Victoria was born. And, honey, we were in the waiting room with our other kids, along with Bond's parents and his sister. What are some of the memories that you have from that night?
Yeah, there are so many, but I think what stands out to me is that I have never had the experience of waiting in a hospital room for a baby to be born because I was usually the one delivering the baby. So I really wanted to be, present in the hospital. I didn't need to be in the room. They had a doula with them. I was really thankful that one of my good friends was Lissy's doula, so I felt very good about her being in good hands. I know I'd personally always wanted a doula, so I was very excited that Lissy was getting this extra support. She actually had the same OB doctor as me, so that was kind of a fun overlap that I wasn't expecting.
Dr. Carroll delivered Rush and now Avie, right?
Yeah, and Dr. Carroll delivered Millie, too. I mean, he had, for the last three, was Dr. Carroll. So that was a fun overlap. But I think that just having the experience that I was, looking forward to with Bond coming out and making the announcement. While we knew it was a girl, we had no idea what the name was. So Amy Victoria was a huge surprise, and seeing just Bond's delight on his face and the reaction of all of us there, which was a blessing because technically the COVID rules, we might not have supposed to have had so many people in the hospital, but because she delivered late at night, we were
nurses,
kind of like the
compassion,
night rules. Yeah. So that was a little, we kind of snuck in, I guess, as far as everybody being there. So that was also a huge excitement. And to see Avie, minutes after, maybe not minutes, but an hour after she was born was really exciting.
Right. Yeah, being in the waiting room was obviously a different experience. Of course, with our children, I'm with you. I know what's going on, but we're out there. We're waiting for news, waiting for a text, waiting for the door to open. And there was like a solid 90 minutes after the doctor arrived.
Yes.
Again, Dr. Carroll. And every time the door would open, all of us would sit up and look up, and it was some other parent or nurse coming around, and we're like, oh, not us. Now the name, Amy Victoria.
Yeah.
Amy, obviously in honor of you, and Victoria, named after Bond's mother, Victoria, Vicky, and those two names come together to make Avie. Now, we also need to talk about something very important here as well. Avie's name is a big deal, but our grandparent names are critical because this is the first one. We're establishing these patterns right now. There's been a lot of conversation and debate over this. Have we settled? Do we know what we're doing?
I have to tell these stories because I want people to have a little bit of a window into my world, which is kind of an unusual world. So one of the close friends that we hang out with, another family that homeschools, they have 9 children in their family, and their youngest kids line up with our youngest kids. So there's a lot of carpooling. A lot of these kids share the same, car rides, and all the conversations are very interesting. Well, one of these car rides, these two kids from the other family, the Sommer family, they were about to be an aunt and uncle. They were aunt and uncle probably a year or two before our kids were, okay? And first of all, it's funny because they were actually in a competition for a while to see who was going to be aunt or uncle first.
Sure.
So there's not many 7-year-olds who's competing with another child to see who will be an uncle first.
Right.
So that's sort of random. And then they're all talking about what their names are going to be.
Names,
their uncle names are going to be. So that's also the conversation going on. And then Rush knew that we were talking about grandparent names. So he kind of got the two worlds mixed up. So out of nowhere, he just says, well, when I'm a grandpa, my name is going to be Uncle Pooch. I'm like,
his grandpa name.
And I think he's like
Uncle Pooch.
Right.
A lot of confusion there.
That was when he was 7. But I just said, well, I'm glad you've got that figured out. Not many people.
That's a weird uncle
can
name
claim
and
that
a weird grandpa name. Either
it
way.
all got jumbled. But as far as our grandparents' name,
Yep.
that was also interesting because, again, this little one is coming into a world where both families are living in the same area. There's great-grandparents now in the picture for Avie.
Right. A lot of names have to be sorted out.
A lot of names have already been claimed. So we have my parents are Grandma and Bop Bop. Your parents are Nana and Papa Jack, but they live further away. So when Vicky wanted to be Nana, I was like, okay, that works. But we already have Grandma. Like, my mom's a grandma. So I settled on Mamie, which is Amy with an M.
Yeah.
So Mamie.
Right. It's a quick move to that.
Right. My aunt, your sister's already Mimi. So.
Right. You're Mamie. And mine is apparently Cap, which is short for Captain. And that was from our W. Our W sort of growing up called me Captain.
Yes.
And still calls me, hey, Captain.
Yeah.
So it's Cap and Mamie. But we also understand that Avie or future grandchildren could throw all that to the wind and just start calling us something. Like the reason why Bop Bop is called Bop Bop is because our W, the first grandchild, just started calling him Bop Bop, and that's what stuck. So he named him that. So we're going to go with Cap and Mamie, and if things change,
so be it.
We'll let you know.
But I do think we need to give a shout out to the Tim Hawkins thing on, letting children name the patriarchs of the family. Because take the time to look that up. It's quite humorous. You know what I mean? I can't remember all of it, but I just remember, really, what have we come to as a culture?
Trusting the gibberish of a child
for the naming the patriarch. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not necessarily the best thing.
Well, back to that night, we got to see Avie about an hour after she was born, and it really is emotional thinking about it, because with each new child that comes into a family, God, it's multiplies your capacity to love and to love in a new way. I also remember being so happy looking at Lissy and Bond that night and thinking about what God just brought them through. Mm-hmm. And this scripture, which we love, is Psalm 127, where God says that children are a heritage and a reward. Just thinking that God had rewarded Lissy and Bond as a dad, grandpa, just amazing to think about. And now all these scriptures on grandparenting are jumping off the page. Until you're a grandparent, you sort of, skip over those because it's not really your life. But Deuteronomy 4:9 says, only take care, keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children. And the conviction there, the need to keep my soul diligently, that our family ministry is now expanded, there's more souls entrusted to our care. And there's so many examples in the Bible of people who started well and ended poorly. And I just don't want to be in that group. So I'm asking the Lord to help me take care, to be diligent, with my own walk with the Lord, with our marriage, with our calling, because our ministry's expanding.
Yeah, that reminds me of Ambush up at Gull Lake when he talked about what you were just referring to, that most of the people who fall away from God do so at the latter part of their life, which makes sense because you're in a phase where, you kind of stop. Some people stop dreaming at this point or having a lot of hope if they've gone through lots of discouragements and for all sorts of reasons.
Right.
And I guess what struck me is that we want to stay in this till God takes us home to heaven. That this is not.
That's right.
We're never really going to retire in the sense of these responsibilities of how to pass our faith on to our children and our grandchildren, but also for God to use us in ministry with the world around us. There's not a phase where you can say, okay, I'm done until the Lord says that you are done and he takes you home. So that was a reminder to me. And another thing was that how important it is for children to have time with their grandparents, because even in the reference that you just said about make them known, make your stories, make your faith stories known to your grandchildren, that requires time, that requires relationship. And in a culture that doesn't promote that necessarily, we're so busy with so many important things, it's easy for us to miss out on communicating with, especially with our own grandparents. It's just a conviction to me, like, how do we make sure that we don't push out the time that's needed in order to be able to share those things.
Right. It reminded me, and you and I were talking about this late one night last week. Give me a minute, 'cause it's going to take me a bit to get to my point here. But a couple weeks ago, Mikhail Gorbachev died.
Right.
And that was in the news. And of course, he was the last president or premier, I guess, of the Soviet Union before the collapse of the Soviet Union. And so he's in the news, and they're doing these different biographies on him. And I'm listening to folks talk about it. And Albert Mohler mentioned his wife, Raisa, who apparently in their younger years, Raisa was more the philosophical communist. She was more the philosophical Soviet. And she was actually involved in trying to figure out how do we convert the Russian people who historically were religious and a lot of Christian base. How do we convert them to atheism? How do we get them detached, as she said, from their superstitions and their ignorance?
Right.
So she did this study on rural Siberian communities. And because they said in the cities, we were able to propagandize these folks pretty well. This is her writing.
Right.
And deconvert them from their superstitions. But we're really having a hard time with the rural folks out in Siberia. They keep clinging to their religion.
Right.
And so one of the things that she proposed is, to work with me on this, she proposed getting rid of the literacy programs for the elderly. Okay, you had elderly folks out in Siberia who didn't know how to read and write. So they started doing literacy programs for them. That kind of makes some sense, right? Seems like a good thing to do. But the problem was, she said we have to get rid of the literacy programs and get them back in the fields, because with the literacy programs, they're home and they're taking care of grandchildren, and these old folks still believe in God, and the grandchildren are spending time with their grandparents who believe in God, and these kids are not giving up their belief in God, so we have to stop the literacy programs.
Right.
So I'm like,
Sort
okay.
of like kind of roundabout.
I know. So it's like, all right, so basically the government of the Soviet Union is declaring cultural war on illiterate elderly grandparents in Siberia because it's preventing them from advancing the cause of atheism. Yes. So all that to say, it was just, to me, it was this incredible story about just the impact of the presence of grandparents.
Well, and to me, the awareness of the power of the family in passing faith, and therefore the need to strike at that foundation. And while that was the communist government, it is Satan that is the author of that type of attack. And so recognizing where the attack is coming from. And as believers, we need to be aware and proactively combating that strategy.
Yep. Well, I'm sure we're going to have lots of grandparenting stories, learnings, adventures ahead.
Good job going off script today. I'm proud of you. That was impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate the verbal affirmation.
Good.
My love language. But our ministry is it's all about helping families and churches catch this multi-generational vision for the gospel. So if you haven't picked up a copy of Visionary Parenting, you can find that wherever you buy your books. And as you know, Family Vision's a part of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. And we want to tell you about a new resource they have for moms. It's called Helping Moms Raise Confident Daughters. It's from Tara Matson. It's 8 video lessons, conversation guides, a downloadable journal. And there's different courses for different age kids in different stages of parenting. You can learn more at CP Guides. That's cpguides.org. And as always, if we can be praying for your family, you can send us prayer needs at podcast@visionaryfam.com. That's podcast@visionaryfam.com. And if you've not already checked out the amazing Visionary Family Weekend Away, November 11 to 13, 2022 at the Kalahari Resort in the Wisconsin Dells, now is the time. It is filling quickly. Get all the information at visionaryfam.com/retreat. And we look forward to our next time with you on Family Vision.